Again, picking up where we left off. Section C, solving problems by adding or subtracting like fractions. It says number 1, find the difference in length of two boards if one board is 4/5 of a foot and the other is 2/3 of a foot. So, what we would do here, we would take 4/5 minus 2/3. Now we need to find the common denominator, because we know if we're dealing with difference, we're dealing with subtraction. So we find the prime factorization of 5 and 3. 5 is prime, and also 3 is prime. So we know our LCD is 15, because 3 times 5 is 15. So now we'll put 15 as our denominator. So we would take 15 divided by 5, which gives us 3. So we'll multiply our numerator and denominator by 3. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. So we'll multiply our numerator and denominator by 5. 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15, and 2 times 5 is 10. Now we'll keep our denominator as 15. 12 minus 10 is 2. So it'd be 2/15 of a foot. And that's it for that section. Now we come to section 3.9, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Okay, it says in order to add or subtract mixed numbers, we want to use the following steps. To add or subtract mixed numbers, add or subtract the fraction parts and then add or subtract the whole number parts. Note, sometimes in subtracting mixed numbers, we may have to borrow. Okay, now, what I want to do here, I want to get down to the practical part. So I took the liberty of skipping down to example set A. I'll give you a couple moments to get to that page. I think it's 2 more pages into your course pack. Okay, now you should be there. Now this is what I would suggest that we do. With adding mixed numbers, let's do the fractions first. The common denominator are 9 and 3. We could do the prime factorization of 9 and 3. 9 breaks down to 3 times 3. And we know 9 prime factorization is 3 and 3. And 3's prime factorization is 3. Our LCD is just these two 3's, 3 times 3. So our LCD is 9. So now, what I want to do off to the side, I just want to write the fractions. I'm not going to deal with the whole numbers yet. So our common denominator is 9. Now we know 9 divided by 9 is 1, so we'll multiply our numerator and denominator by 1. And 1 times 2 is 2, so that gives us 2 9s. Now here, 9 divided by 3 is 3. Multiply our numerator and denominator by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 3 is 6. Now we add them together, and that gives us 8 9s. So that took care of our fraction parts. Now our whole number parts, we have 4 plus 1, which gives us 5. So we would combine these two together, and that would give us 5 and 8 9s. And that is our final answer. Now we go here to number 2. Do the same process. We'll find the prime factorization of 5, prime factorization of 6. 6 breaks down to 2 times 3. 2 is prime, 3 is prime. So the prime factorization of 6 is 2 and 3. And we already know 5 is prime. They have nothing in common. So our LCD is equal to 2 times 3 times 5. So our LCD is equal to 30. Okay, now, so what I want to do is take these fractions. I have 2/5 plus 5/6. Our new common denominator is 30. So 30 divided by 5 is 6. So we multiply the numerator and denominator by 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5. We multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. 6 times 5 is 30, and 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 5 is 30, and 5 times 5 is 25. Now we add them together. That will give us 37 over 30. Now, before we deal with these mixed numbers, let's look here. Isn't this an improper fraction? Yes, it is. So what we need to do, we need to go off to the side. And what I'm going to do is this here. I'm going to go above. Since you're watching this video, you can organize this how you want to, on your course back. So we're going to take 30 into 37. 30 goes into 37 once. 37 minus 30 leaves us a remainder of 7. So this is really equal to 1/7 over 30. Now we're going to take our whole numbers here. We will add 3 plus 2, which we know is 5. Now we're going to add these two numbers together. You have 5. We're going to take this whole number plus the whole number here. 5 plus 1 is 6. And then we will write our fraction. So it'd be 6 and 7/30ths. So again, we have this 5 plus this 1. So we have 5 plus 1, which gives us 6, and we will bring our fraction down here. Now, let's try this again. Let's try this with number 3. First thing we do is find our common denominator. So 15 breaks down to 3 and 5. 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So we had 3 and 5, and 2 and 2. Now our least common denominator would be, we would have 2 2s, a 3, and a 5. So our least common denominator is 60. So now we go off to the side with these fractions. So we have 2 over 15 plus 3 over 4. And then we have our common denominator of 60. 60 divided by 15 is 4, so we multiply our numerator and denominator by 4. And sometimes this line comes up with our number 4 for some reason. As a matter of fact, let me clear that out. Now replace those other 4s with 4s that actually look like 4s. So 4 times 15 is 60, and 4 times 2 is 8. Now, we look here, 60 divided by 4 is 15. So we multiply our numerator and denominator by 15. 4 times 15 is 60, and 3 times 15 is 45. So now we add these two together. 8 plus 45 is 53 over 60. Now we cannot make this into a mixed number, so this will stay 53 over 60. Now over here, we're going to take these whole numbers here, which is 8 and 4. So we have 8 plus 4, which is 12. So now 12 is our whole number, and our fraction will be 53 over 60. And this is our final answer. Now we go here to number 4. We do the same thing, even though we have three different terms here. So we still would take this fraction. So what I'm going to do with this 15 and 9, I'm going to go over here because I'm not using this anymore. So I'm going to do 15 and also 9. 15 breaks down to 3 and 5. 9 breaks down to 3 and 3. So our LCD is 3 times 3 times 5. So our LCD is 45. So we take these fractions here, which is 2 15ths plus 2 9ths. Our common denominator is 45. So we say 45 divided by 15 is 3. So we multiply our numerator and denominator by 3, and that will give us 6 over 45. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So we'll multiply our numerator and denominator by 5. That will give us 10 over 45. Now we add them together. This would be 16 over 45. Now 16 and 45 has nothing in common, so this would take care of our fraction. Now we deal with our whole numbers. We add 8, 4, and 5. 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 5 is 17. So now we combine our whole number and our fraction, and that will give us 16 over 45. Okay, now we scroll on down. Now we go to example set B. Now let's try the same thing we did with addition. So we'll find a common denominator. We have 15, we have 5. 15 breaks down to 3 times 5, and 5 we know is its own prime factorization. So the least common denominator is 3 times 5. Least common denominator is 15. So we'll take these fractions off to the side. And our common denominator here will be 15. 15 divided by 15 is 1. We multiply the numerator and denominator by 1. So 1 times 7 is 7, so that's 7/15. 15 divided by 5 is 3. We multiply our numerator and denominator by 3. And this will give us 9. Now, I'm glad that this first problem does this out the gate. If you notice, this second fraction is smaller than this first fraction. So that means we would end up with a negative number. So what we need to do this a little differently than what we did with the addition of the fractions. So what we're going to do here is these fractions that we found the common denominator and the new numerator for, we're going to put them back with their whole numbers. So this 9 and 7/15, and we're going to line them up vertically. Then it'd be minus 5, and then this would be 9/15. Okay, now, this is what we would do. We're going to borrow to get this so that this fraction won't be negative. So the first thing we would do is this. When you borrow, your bottom mixed number stays the same. That does not change. So the minus 5 and 9/15 stays a minus 5 and 9/15. Now we will borrow 1 from this 9, which would make it 8. So our new whole number here would be 8, and our denominator would still stay 15. Now to find our numerator. The new numerator, when we borrow 1, this is how you get the new numerator. We would take this denominator, which is 15, and add it to the previous numerator. What's 15 plus 7? We know it's 22. Now let's recap that. We'll borrow 1 from this 9. That'll give us 8. That is our new whole number. Our denominator will stay 15. To get our new numerator, we would take our denominator plus our numerator. 15 plus 7 gave us 22. Now, our first fraction is larger than our second fraction. So now we can subtract. 22 over 15 minus 9 over 15 is 13 over 15. And 8 minus 5 is 3. So our final answer here is 3, 13 over 15. Now we're going to go to number 2. Now we can still start it off the same way. First, let's take these denominators, 9 and 18. 9 breaks down to 3 and 3. 18 breaks down to 2 and 9. And 9 breaks down to 3 and 3. So the prime factorization of 9 is 3 and 3. Prime factorization of 18 is 2, 3, and 3. So our LCD is equal to, it'll be 2, and then also 2 3s. So our LCD is 18. So let's write it over here. I'm going to bring over these whole numbers here. So our common denominator is 18. So we know 18 divided by 18 is 1. So we'll multiply this 5 over 18 by 1 over 1. So 5 times 1 is 5, and 18 times 1 is 18. Okay, next, 18 divided by 9 is 2. So we're going to take this 7/9 and multiply it. I'm going to write it here. This 7/9 we're going to multiply it by 2 over 2. 9 times 2 is 18. 7 times 2 is 14. Now it just worked out here that this top fraction is actually larger than this bottom fraction. 14 over 18 minus 5 over 18 is 9 over 18. And 29 minus 13 is 16. Now if we look at this fraction here, we can simplify it. So what I want you to do first is write down your whole number down here. Now we could take this fraction and simplify it. We know the prime factorization of 9 is 3 and 3, and the prime factorization of 18 is 2, 3, and 3. These 3's would simplify out. So your numerator would be 1 and your denominator would be 2. So it's 16.5. Now we scroll down here to the next problem, which is 25 minus 10 and 2/9. Now, if you notice here, this doesn't have a fraction.